the Florida Writer Podcast, a discussion about writing and other things.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the Florida Writer Podcast. I'm your host, Allison Niston, and today I am lucky enough to have with me Dave Brown. Dave, why don't you give me a 60-second elevator pitch about who you are and what you write?
Great, thanks. Okay. Born in Pennsylvania in 1939, before the war. And amazing, I'm an old guy. And I was raised in Shillington, went to Denison University in Ohio, and then spent 23 years in the Marine Corps. Get my master's degree along the way. Taught at the Naval Academy during that 23 years. And since then, I've been doing some consulting work and the like. And at this point, I'm writing my fourth book, so having a good time doing it too. How's that for a thumbnail sketch, Allison?
That is a perfect thumbnail sketch. So what is the main genre that you like to write?
It's what I have been writing, so it's not that I like it or don't like it. It's what comes natural to me, I guess. But it's historical fiction. You can call it a military fiction since it's all about the Marine Corps that I'm writing about, and so that's what it is. A lot of research with it, and then when there's some unknown parts, I put a character in there to tie the things together, and that character could be anybody, or it seems to work pretty well for me at this point.
Historical fiction is a lot of fun because you do get to do the research, and it sounds like you're writing what you know with the military background that you have had.
Exactly, Allison. And I have a lot of contacts. Not only do I have many, many books, 23 years I have more than 23 years of experience. As I continue to write these books, I go to the Marine Corps bases, and I know a lot of the Marines, and I'm interviewing Marines, and I'm just continuing my trek with the Marine Corps and the men in the Marine Corps and women at this point. And so it's just a continuation of something that started in 1960. And it makes it pretty easy. It's a lot of fun. And actually getting the feedback from people I interview, and then I write their little stories up, and they said, oh my gosh, it really reminds me of when I was there. So anyway, I guess I'm hitting home runs with them too. So that's reinforcing.
So did you decide just instantly to start writing books, or did that evolve from something else?
That's a good question, Allison. It's maybe a combination of both things. Let me just say that in the military we had to do a lot of writing, but it was all for a reader. It was for the military, and it was kind of lack of prose, if you will. It was very factual and things like that. And then I started writing a series of articles when I retired to describe some of the programs I was involved with and was consulting in. As I pursued that further, I ended up putting conversations in. I think that was a bridge that I hadn't done before, but putting conversations in and quoting people, that was kind of the bridge away from all the factual reporting of strictly Marine Corps-ese, if you will, and government-ese, if you will. And that got me to the point that I was writing fun articles, again, about the Marine Corps. And my daughter, Tiffany, started writing a book about my rifle company in Vietnam because she used to go to all the reunions. And then because she wasn't in Vietnam, she got kind of stuck with it. And I said, let me try my section of the 5-year history. I was with the company for 6 months, but we're looking at a 5-year history. So in the middle there, I was a company commander. So I said, let me try my variation. And I found that I had no trouble doing it. I put it all in the first person as a naive approach to it because not knowing. But then if I was going to write everything, I changed that very rapidly to putting me in the third person. Instead of saying, I remember getting there in the plane, and so pretty soon I changed that to Brown arrived on the plane, those type of things. And then that book, it actually took me 5 years to write because it's lengthy, but it's 5 years of history. Tiffany edited it, and we went to publication, and she was a co-writer. I gave her credit for that. We won a gold award for memoirs by the Military Writers Society of America. So that was that's the background of my writing. It evolved from doing writing in the Marine Corps and then writing articles for magazines and then basically telling people stories. And it's still doing the storytelling at this point.
The thing that allowed you to jump from writing the dull articles for the military publications was using or adding dialogue. Did you find that adding dialogue was challenging? I mean, you made it sound like it was something simple, but did you find that trying to translate that actual voice, the real voice, what came naturally to you?
Yeah, it came natural. First of all, I'm quoting it. And secondly, now at this point, I'm asking fellows who are recalling what they did 20, 30, 40 years ago and saying, well, I told the gunny, this is my opinion. And of course, the trooper would never say that, the gunnery sergeant. So you could just translate it. They said that's exactly when I write it in the way in which I want that said, they think that's exactly what they said, and this is exactly what they told me. They don't change the words. So people don't know what they say. The conclusion is people don't memorize the words that came out of their mouth. And when you write it in the tone that they want it written and the tone that they can get away with, which is not mental thoughts, it's actually what you can get away with, it ends up being an easy thing to do. So that's what I have no problems anymore about doing that.
It makes it a lot of fun when you can take what they tell you and then actually recreate it so that it sounds authentic, because memories have holes in them. So you're able to fill that part in. And
they believe they actually did this. One guy on our first book, which I called historical fiction, said, how could you say it's a fiction, Skipper? It's not a fiction. It's exactly what happened. Well, they didn't realize how often I made things up, people's names they didn't know. So that's fun. One quick story, if I can tell a quick story on that kind of fiction. I recall there was a period of time in the Vietnam book, which is called Battlelines. There was a period of time where there wasn't actually a firefight for almost like a month. The company, I was not there at the time, but the company was in the rear, what we call in the rear at a combat base, and then also out. And so I had to fill in the blanks. What I did is I looked at the command chronology, which is a monthly publication by the battalion, and I saw what training was going on. One of the training items that was mandatory and the troopers had to go to was a lecture, a video, or a lecture, whatever was written, but it had to do with the dangers of smoking. And we're dealing now with 1967, where the Surgeon General declared for the first time that it was dangerous for your health to smoke cigarettes. So that was what they were being instructed on. So it was easy for me to pick two of the characters that actually were in a firefight recently. Now we're in the rear, having to go through that training, and then leaving that training and says, what do you think of that bullshit? Oh my God, can you imagine smoking cigarettes like this would actually hurt you? I can't believe someone's actually saying we shouldn't smoke. So that conversation came out, and I wrote that conversation like that, and no one ever questioned it. That's the example I have for you.
That's a very creative way to be able to put realism into the fiction. And I like that you did such research that you were able to find the logs and the training manuals or the training that was required of each, I guess, individual while they were there serving their country. That is, I think that's awesome, by the way. So
yeah, let me share one more example, which I give to everybody. And this, if anybody's listening to this, they could use it. We all know exactly when George Washington crossed the Delaware River. We know where you could easily find out exactly where he took off from and where he landed. Now, standing there as he is on an icy river, flowing down there, do you think he had any conversation like, hey, stop splashing. Watch how you put that oar in the water. Hey, what do you think about that light? That light over there. Wait, is there a light? Do you see a light beyond that tree? That type of thing. So nobody knows what he said, but he sure wasn't standing there like the painting we see, erect in the middle of crossing the river. So anyway, you can put in what you want then when it doesn't exist. So that's the historical fiction end of it.
Brilliant example, because Washington is not standing there like Napoleon with his hand in his jacket and his arm behind, the other arm behind his back, leading the charge across a frozen river. You're right. Do you have a target audience, or are you yourself the target audience?
Basically, I've moved to base the Marine Corps as a target audience. One could say I'm doing things for, when you're writing a book and publish it yourself, they're going to ask you what genre you want, and they allow you to have 2 or something like that. They can publish it. And then you have probably choices of maybe 300. Of course, it's not a children's book or anything like that. So I put down military people, put down historians. I put down a couple of books I wrote on Nicaragua, so I put down the Caribbean or South American studies, some of those choices like that. That's what so I'm writing basically for, frankly, anybody who would be interested in that segment of history. Currently, I'm working on a book the main incident took place on October 23rd, 1983, when the Marine barracks over in Beirut was blown up, and besides the mostly Marines, Navy, and some soldiers, 241 people were killed, and there are a lot more injured. It was the first time there was a terrorist attack in the nation's history. So I'm writing that story right now.
Have you ever wanted to write anything besides historical fiction?
I have not been motivated to write anything but historical fictions, and I keep saying every time I finish a book, boy, that's my last one. I am finished with this, and no more hard work and studying and all that. And then you start missing it like an old friend, and you got to go look up, and you're busy writing away. And it's like you and the manuscript is just one and the same, and it's a great escape to get up here. And so I have no need to do a regular fiction. I think once you get hooked on a style and it's working for you, it's hard to get away from that. Maybe it's because I'm lazy. Maybe it's because it's just a natural human instinct to do what you like to do and do what seems to be working for you. I think the majority of us are that. If you like baseball when you're young, you like baseball when you're older. So I think the same thing goes with writing. If you like the style you're writing that's working for you, no sense breaking that.
I will agree with you 100%. It can become an old friend. It's like a comfortable shoe that you keep going back to.
Mm-hmm.
David, I'm going to switch gears, and I'm going to move to our rapid fire questions. These are going to be 3 random questions that you don't know right now, and let's just see how we go. My first question, Are you ready?
Yep.
Dogs or cats?
Oh, I'm allergic to cats, so and I do like cats, but dogs seem to communicate with me much better, and I like dogs because they befriend you better than a cat.
They are man's best friend and women's best friend, that's for sure. All right, David, what was the last concert that you have seen?
It was a dance recital. Are you talking about music concerts?
Dance recital's great. Was it somebody you know?
Dance recital. It was indeed. It was our niece was in a dance recital down in Wilmington, North Carolina, and she was very good.
And do you have any books on your nightstand?
I do not have any books on my nightstand because I don't read at nighttime. But I got, for instance, on this current book, I have that I'm writing. I have at least 15 books that I've read or get research materials from, and I pick challenging things like the Middle East. To understand the real roots of the Middle East, it takes a lot of research to understand everything that's going on in the Middle East. I'm not an expert on it, but I have sources that'll enhance my writing. So, do I have a book on my nightstand? No, I don't read at nighttime.
Don't read at nighttime. Well, David, this has been a lot of fun. I'm so glad you have stopped by. How could people find you if they wanted to get in touch with you?
Well, that's pretty easy. I have a website, www.davidbrownbooks.net.
davidbrownbooks.net. We will all remember that and make sure to look you up. So thank you so much for stopping by. This has been the Florida Writer. This has been the Florida Writer Podcast. Allison out. And that's it.
Okay.
Piece of cake. Piece of cake, right?
Piece of cake. Right.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Florida Writer Podcast. For more information about the Florida Writers Association, visit us on the web, floridawriters.net.